The Texas sun had a way of cooking silence. It pressed down on the Turner ranch till even the flies gave up. Elias Turner worked alone by the corral, shoulders slick with sweat, hands rough as rope. He didn't speak much. Men like him learned long ago that words didn't buy respect. The others laughed as they passed, boots loud, voices louder. "Careful, boy," one of them called. "Don't let the shovel outsmart you." Elias just nodded, kept his rhythm, one scoop of dirt after another. The earth, at least, didn't lie. It yielded when asked right. He was the only dark face on the ranch, though a few came through now and then, field hands, drifters, men who didn't stay. Elias stayed. The foreman said he was steady, and steady men were useful. They gave him the hardest jobs, digging fence posts, hauling feed, fixing whatever the others broke. They called him Shade because of his skin, not realizing the name fit better than they meant. He moved quiet, worked quiet, lived quiet. And in that quiet, he noticed things the others missed, like how the horses talked with their ears before their eyes. At dawn, before the shouting started, Elias would walk to the paddock and lean on the fence. That was the only hour the world seemed honest. Horses snorted in the mist, tails swishing, bodies steaming. He spoke to them low, words more for himself than them. "Morning now," he'd say. "You made it through the dark." Some lifted their heads, some didn't. He never minded. Animals didn't owe him manners. He knew a man's worth wasn't in who listened but in who didn't run. And the horses never ran from him. That was enough. One Monday, they brought in something wild. You could hear it before you saw it, hooves tearing at the ground, iron gate rattling like thunder in a tin roof. Men shouted, cursed, laughed in that way men do when fear feels close enough to smell. Elias came over from the trough, wiping his hands on his shirt. In the center pen, a Mustang spun, black as river mud, mane tangled with burrs, eyes white around the edges. Dust rose like prayer smoke. The foreman grinned. "Caught him up near Palo Duro," he said. "Broke 2 ropes getting him here." The cowboys circled, spitting jokes between gulps of coffee. "Bet the devil's riding that one. Bet he's meaner than the preacher's wife." Elias stood a little apart, watching. The horse wasn't mean, he was scared. He kept testing the fence, not for escape, but for understanding. Elias saw that look before, in men who'd been chained and didn't yet trust freedom. The Mustang blew hard, a low sound that vibrated in Elias's ribs. He whispered, "Easy now." One cowboy caught it. "You talking to him, Shade? He don't speak mule." Laughter rolled like thunder with no rain behind it. By noon, the foreman started placing bets. $20 says no man rides him before Friday. Boots scraped dirt. Spit hit dust. "What about you, Carter?" "Not me. I like my bones straight." Someone nudged Elias with a boot. "How about you, Shade? He looks your color." The laughter stung sharper than the words. Elias didn't look up. He just kept coiling the rope he'd been repairing, hands steady, voice low. "I ain't got $20 to lose." That only made them laugh harder. He walked off before they could find more fun to have with him. That night, long after the lanterns died, Elias came back to the corral. The moon was thin, the kind of silver you could mistake for forgiveness. The Mustang stood in the far corner, dark against darker. Elias leaned on the rail. "You and me," he said softly. "We know about cages, don't we?" The horse flicked an ear. Wind hissed through mesquite. He didn't bring sugar cubes or rope, just his breath and patience. When the horse stepped closer, it was only a single hoof's worth, but that was further than most men ever got with trust. Days passed. The men tried and failed, one after another. The Mustang threw them like he was shaking off sin. One cracked ribs, another sprained his pride worse than his leg. Each fall brought more laughter, louder bets. They started calling the Mustang Satan's joke. Elias stayed quiet. He fixed saddles, scrubbed troughs, kept his head down. But every evening, when no one looked, he returned to that fence. He never tried to touch the horse, only stood close enough for both to breathe the same calm. Patience, he'd learned, was its own kind of power. Then came Friday. The foreman was in a mood for spectacle. "All right, boys," he shouted, clapping his hands. "Let's see who the devil likes today." They brought the Mustang out, lassoed and raging. Sunlight bounced off his hide like fire. Men shouted, boots thumped wood, spurs chimed sharp. The foreman looked around. "Who's left?" Laughter answered. "Let the boy try," someone yelled. "Maybe the horse'll pity him." Elias froze. The laughter grew teeth. "Yeah, come on, Shade. You talk so sweet to him at night. Let's see if love works better than leather." He didn't mean to walk forward. His legs decided before pride could argue. The ring of men opened just enough for him to step through. The foreman smirked. "You sure, Turner? You ain't paid enough to die today." Elias looked at the Mustang, trembling, furious, magnificent. "I ain't fixin' to die," he said quietly. "I'm fixin' to listen." The cowboys howled with laughter, some slapping their knees, others spitting in disbelief. The foreman shrugged. "Your funeral, son." He handed over the reins like a dare and stepped back into the shade where Cruelty watched comfortably. Elias dropped the rope, slow and deliberate. The horse stilled, confused. The crowd murmured. "He's letting him go? He's scared already." Elias stepped closer, hands open, eyes low. "Ain't nobody gonna hurt you now," he whispered. The Mustang's chest heaved. Sweat glistened like oil. Elias took another step, breathing steady. A fly landed on the horse's cheek and left without biting. He reached out, slow enough to let the air get used to it first, and brushed his fingers against the Mustang's neck. The horse flinched, then leaned just barely into the touch. The world went quiet. Even the laughter dried up, unsure how to handle reverence. Elias spoke again. Words only the horse could need. "Ain't nobody gonna break you, friend. We just gotta remember how not to be scared." The Mustang's breath hitched. He lowered his head until it rested against Elias's chest. Gasps scattered like birds. The foreman's jaw clenched. Elias stood there, unmoving, letting the animal decide. When the Mustang finally stepped back, the rope lay slack between them, no struggle, no fight, just two survivors agreeing that peace could still exist. No one spoke. Dust drifted through sunlight, lazy and holy. Then someone muttered, "That ain't natural." Another spat. "Must be some trick." The foreman cleared his throat. "All right, that's enough foolin'. Turner, back to work." He turned to lead the horse away, but the Mustang followed Elias instead, staying close as a shadow. That stirred another round of whispers. "He's following him. Ain't right." Elias didn't turn around. He didn't need to. The sound of those hooves behind him was the first kindness he'd been offered in years, and he wasn't about to question it. The foreman barked an order, but the Mustang ignored him. When another cowboy tried to grab the lead rope, the horse snapped, striking the ground hard enough to crack dirt. The man stumbled back, cursing. Elias raised a hand. "Easy." The horse calmed instantly. Every eye watched the impossible happen. The foreman's lips tightened to a line. "Get that animal back in the pen." Elias met his gaze. "He won't go if I don't." The silence that followed was heavier than hate. Finally, the foreman spat in the dust. "Then you handle him. He's your problem now." That evening, Elias walked the Mustang down to the river beyond the barns. The light there was softer, the kind that forgave mistakes. The horse waded in first, snorting at the cool. Elias knelt by the bank, splashing water on his face. "They'll hate me worse for this," he said. The Mustang shook his mane, spraying him with droplets that caught fire in the sun. Elias laughed a sound so rare it startled him. "Yeah," he said, "I reckon you're right. Some things worth hatin' for." The horse nudged his shoulder like punctuation on a truth well said. That night, as stars stitched themselves across the black, Elias sat outside the small shack he called home. The Mustang grazed nearby, a shadow that breathed. "They think I ain't belongin' here," he said quietly. "But you saw me before they did." The wind carried his voice through mesquite branches. "Guess that makes us both strays, huh?" The horse flicked an ear, content. Somewhere far off, laughter rose again from the bunkhouse. Coarse, easy, unthinking. Elias didn't flinch this time. Some laughter wasn't worth hearing. The night was, and the night was on his side. By morning, the story had spread. Turner's got Satan eaten out of his hand. The black horse likes the black man. Must be witchcraft. The jokes came cheap and frequent. Elias ignored them, same as always. The foreman assigned him to stable duty, hoping to keep him out of sight. Didn't work. Every cowboy who passed by slowed to watch the impossible pair, the man and the Mustang, moving like they'd been built from the same silence. Some spat, some smiled, some just stared. But no one tried to ride the horse again. Not after that. Days folded into weeks. Elias worked with the Mustang quietly, never forcing a saddle, never demanding more than trust. They'd walk the pastures at dusk, two silhouettes stitched to one horizon. The others called him crazy for wasting time on a beast that wouldn't earn money. But Elias knew better. He wasn't taming the horse, he was remembering himself through it. And maybe, just maybe, the Mustang was doing the same. Every step beside that wild heart reminded him that freedom doesn't mean running fast. It means walking slow without fear. One evening, thunder rumbled across the plains, low and promising. The men hurried to tie down tarps, muttering about bad omens. Elias stood with the Mustang under the open sky. The air smelled like rain and release. Lightning flickered, white veins across purple clouds. The horse lifted his head high, nostrils wide, eyes bright with a joy. Elias recognized that wild hunger to exist unashamed. "Go on," he whispered. "You don't owe me stayin'." The horse hesitated, then bolted across the field, black against stormlight. A streak of living thunder set free. The rain broke hard, washing the ranch clean of dust and pride. Men shouted, doors slammed, thunder laughed overhead. Elias stayed outside, letting the storm soak through him. He looked toward where the Mustang had disappeared, heart heavy but light at once. "You showed me," he said softly, "what bein' seen feels like." In the distance, lightning flared, and for a heartbeat, he swore he saw that dark shape rearing high, mane whipping rain, free and fearless. Then it was gone. He smiled into the storm. "Run far," he whispered. "Just don't forget who you are." Morning wore a clean shirt after the storm, but the ranch looked like it had slept rough. Tarps flapped, troughs overflowed, fences sagged where wind had leaned too hard. Elias walked the line with a hammer and a pocket of nails, mending the world one faithful tap at a time. No sign of the Mustang. He told himself that was right. Freedom ought to be used. Still, silence felt heavier than tools. By noon, the bunkhouse coughed out trouble. Knots of men, voices already sharpened. He saw the way eyes found him first, like blame had a compass. "The payroll's light," Carter said, hat tipped, grin wrong. Somebody relieved the safe of $40 and 2 gold eagles. The foreman stood with arms crossed, jaw tight like a gate that wouldn't open. "We count every Saturday," Today, it counts wrong. A few boots angled toward Elias. Shade worked the sheds last night. Someone offered. Easy as spitting. Figures. Elias didn't flinch. I worked, same as always. Alone. Laughter gathered. That's the problem. Ain't no witness. The foreman's eyes stayed flat. Sheriff's coming. Best thing is nobody leaves. Elias looked at the river. It moved on anyway. Sheriff Pike rode in with dust on his badge and weariness in his bones. He'd seen this kind of crowd, hungry for a story that let them keep what they thought they knew. Turner, he said, steady. You got reason to be near the office last night? Stacks of reasons, Elias said, all of 'em chores. Pike studied him like a far ridge. Any road out says you didn't? The river does. The foreman cut in. Enough poetry. Man's got motive. Man's got dignity, Elias answered, quiet and unafraid. The word hung there, like a nail in good wood. Lock him in the tool shed till I sort this, Pike said finally, not proud of the choice. The foreman smiled, satisfied to call caution justice. Two cowboys walked Elias toward the door with the respectful cruelty of men who enjoyed orders. Inside it smelled of oil and damp rope. You want to swear by anything? Pike asked, hovering at the frame. Elias shook his head. Swearin' won't weigh the scales, Sheriff. Truth will. Pike nodded once and shut him in. Light laced through the slats, fine as a lie made pretty. Elias sat. Waiting is also a skill. You learn to listen when you've been silenced. The shed taught him dust's language, wind's rumors, the small click a dishonest lock makes when someone checks it twice. Dusk found footfalls soft as mice, then a shape at the hinge Carter, moving like a man borrowing darkness. He slid something into his vest and ghosted toward the corrals. Elias rose to the slat and watched a glint catch moon. Coin, not gilt. He could shout. No one would hear what he meant. He breathed once, twice, and let the night remember for him. The wind said, keep still, then act right. Hoofbeats, faint at first, answered the wind. Not many, just one rhythm he knew in his ribs. Elias closed his eyes and felt the sound arrive before it did. A shadow leaned past the shed ear, forelock, breath like warm leather. The Mustang puffed softly at the crack as if to say, You done waitin'? Elias smiled where no one could see. Always, he whispered. The horse moved to the latch, nosed the iron like memory, and bumped, once, twice. The hinge gave an old man's sigh. The door swung an inch, then honest. Freedom can be quiet when it's sure. Night lay glossy across the yard. Elias slipped from the shed like a prayer leaving a mouth. No one saw him but the horse. They skirted the bunkhouse shadows, following cautions only animals and careful men keep. At the office he paused. Window latch hung wrong. Lock worried by impatient hands. Inside he found what daylight hadn't. A scuff of red dust on the floor that didn't belong to ranch clay, and a torn scrap from a bank sack under the desk where a boot had dragged it. Carter favored Town on Fridays. Town wore that dust like cologne. Elias didn't pocket-proof. He carried it in his step. He went for Pike instead. The sheriff slept in a chair outside the bunkhouse, hat tipped over remorse. Up, Elias said, voice so low it made sense to wake. Pike blinked, hand sliding toward the holster by habit, then stopping by understanding. Elias showed the sack scrap, pointed to the office, then toward the south trail. You lock the wrong door, he said. No heat, just simple weather. Pike unfolded, heavy with the price of being wrong. Let's walk careful, he murmured. Careful travels farther. They moved like rain. They reached the back corral in time to hear wires sing a note fences make when they're forced to lie. Shadows bent where the stud pen kissed open land. Carter stood there with two others, cutting a lane for the remuda. "We take 'em quiet," Carter hissed. "Sell 'em fast. Over by Deming. Greed makes men whisper loud." Pike straightened. Elias touched his sleeve. "Listen first." The Mustang stepped from shadow then, black drawn out of black, eyes lit from inside like a banked fire remembering flame. The other horses lifted heads. Hope is contagious in herd language. Carter saw the glow of eyes and grinned mean. "Well, look what the devil coughed up. He raised a rifle. The Mustang didn't flinch." Behind Carter, the cut wire shivered and fell. "Drop it," Pike said. Voice turned to iron. A partner swung his barrel toward the sound. Elias moved before thought. Not fast, true. He knocked the muzzle skyward. The shot stitched a star where there wasn't one. Horses bunched, panic rising. "Don't." Elias breathed into the herd's fear. The Mustang wheeled, planted, and let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream and wasn't quite a prayer. The herd stilled. Even panic paused to listen. Carter cursed and bolted for a saddle tossed on the fence. He flung it at the Mustang's face. Leather hit and fell like an insult that couldn't land. Pike stepped into the open. Hands where talk can see 'em. Carter shoved, ran, sprinting for the cottonwoods with a canvas bundle thumping his vest coin pretending not to jangly. Elias didn't wait for permission. He threw a loop over a fence post, leapt to the Mustang's back bare and certain, and let the horse choose the ground. Choice was faster than orders. They cut south along the wash where storms had written their temper. Moon grinned between clouds, then hid, then returned like doubt. Elias lay low, knees easy, hands light as memory on the withers. The Mustang ran without arguing, picking good earth from bad, listening for stones that rolled wrong. Ahead, Carter's shape fractured the chaparral, then widened where the arroyo spread to flats. He glanced back, saw a ghost man and horse as single fact, and fired blind. The bullet found nothing worth. The Mustang slid left, brushed a mesquite, and kept speed as if fear were a bad suggestion. Carter hit the flats and turned for the river, trusting shallow crossings he thought he knew. The Mustang trusted the whole earth. Elias felt the change stride longer, breath deeper, the way a body runs when it's not chasing but arriving. "Now," he whispered. Not command, but agreement. They ate distance without teeth. The river showed its back, black and gleaming. Carter plunged where sand lies about being ground. His horse faltered, stuttered, slipped. Elias let the Mustang choose angle and came in cross-current, water striking thighs cold enough to wake any lie still asleep. They met in the middle, three shapes and a choice. Carter raised his pistol, hand shaking more from wrong than from cold. Elias didn't reach for iron. He reached for truth's better tool, and threw. The loop opened like a held breath, released clean, round, inevitable. It kissed Carter's wrist, tightened, and asked the gun to leave. River took the metal with gratitude. Carter swore, tugged, went lower, where sand became handsy. The Mustang braced. Elias leaned, and the knot turned into history. They didn't yank. They invited gravity to remember its job. Carter sat down hard into wet consequence. Pike arrived with two men wide-eyed behind him, rifles up and hearts late. He saw Carter cursing river and rope, saw Elias steady on the Mustang like balance had learned a person, and lowered his gun first. "That's enough," he said, words landing like blankets. They dragged Carter to shore. The canvas bundle sighed coins onto mud, the gold winking at moon like a sinner flirting with church. Pike towed it. "Payroll walks back on its own 2 feet," he said, near smiling. He faced Elias. "I locked the wrong man." Elias nodded once. You unlocked the right moment. Morning found the ranch gathered and the truth on display. Coins counted back into the foreman's ledger. Wire mended, fence put upright. Horses chewing like nothing had happened, but everything had changed. Carter kept his eyes on his boots as Pike walked him to the wagon. "You'll see a judge who don't gamble," the sheriff said. The cowboys looked at Elias, most of them for the first time like seeing was a choice. Some the old way, narrow, measuring. Some new wider, wondering what else they'd been wrong about. Elias let them all be. People grow at different reins. The foreman cleared his throat, swallowing pride that scratched going down. "Turner," he said, "about that horse work. If you wanna." The Mustang stepped between them, not aggressive, simply present. Elias touched the broad forehead. "He don't want a job," he said softly. "He makes his own." The foreman tried a smile. "You then?" Elias studied the corral, the men, the distance. "I'll handle what needs gentle hands," he said. "Mornings by the remuda, evenings too." The foreman nodded. "In the language of ranches, that meant we'll pay you fair and learn from it slow." They brought him a proper halter and a new set of tools. He set them down and walked the Mustang to the river one last time. Water moved easy, like it forgave all that hurried it yesterday. "You came when I was locked," Elias said. "That's a thing I won't forget to thank." The horse breathed on his chest, warm and certain. Elias eased the rope off, coiling it without hurry. "You ain't mine," he added. "That's the point." The Mustang looked past him to where the flats opened into miles. A good road says nothing. It just is. The herd stood a ways off, ears forward, not crowding ceremony. The Mustang backed, turned, and trotted toward them, taking up the front without shoving for it. He looked once over his shoulder, the way friends do when they don't need. Goodbye explained. Elias raised a hand. "Run true," he said. The horse flicked his tail answer enough and led the herd into a gallop that braided dust with light. Men watched with hats low for reasons they didn't name. A kid from the cook's wagon whispered, "He chose him." Nobody corrected a fact that clean. Afternoons afterward, Elias still walked the fence and the paddock, steady as weather that had finally learned kindness. Some days the Mustang's tracks appeared at the river and disappeared into light, proof that choice likes to visit. The laughter on the ranch changed timber, lost its bite, kept its music. Sheriff Pike stopped by with coffee, and apology baked into a grin. "You were right," he said. "Truth did the weigh-in." Elias nodded. "Takes its time." He leaned on the rail, where mornings are honest. Horses flicked ears, listening first. Men followed, slower. The day held. That was enough.